The invocation will be done by Mr. Bradshaw.
Thank you.
Could we
Let's all stand, please. Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to gather together tonight. Please instill upon us a desire to do what's best for children. Father, thank you for all the people that are attending here tonight. Lead us and direct us in everything that we do and make it for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor by raising their hands? Any opposed?
I'll pass.
Great, it passes. Okay, we have, what is that here? This one roll down. Opportunity for citizens to address the board. And again, let me say, I want to say again to the board and welcome feedback from our community and appreciation who comes to the board to share concerns and accolades. Please be mindful of our policy BEDH on public participation, which states that we do not allow a discussion of personalities, so board allows you all to come, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tonight, and you have 3 minutes apiece. And the first name I have is Cynthia Windsor.
Close enough.
Okay.
Cynthia Windsor. Wow, I thought I only had 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Ooh. It's hard to keep into just a few minutes when you're really passionate about something, but my name is Cynthia Windsor. My husband and I have 4 children, graduate from A5 schools. I have grandchildren that attend A5 schools. We live in the West Side Zone, and we both are employees of A5. So it's safe to say we're major stakeholders. I spent 10 years working in and managing school cafeterias in A5, and then in my mid-40s went to AU for my elementary ed and early childhood undergrad degrees. During COVID, I had my first year of teaching in 2nd grade and completed my master's in instructional design and learning technology. Currently, I am shaping the innovators, problem solvers, and leaders of tomorrow at Nevitt Forest Elementary as a STEM teacher. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. School should be more than map testing, SC ready, etc. My classes from K4 through 5th grade are about curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and preparing students for jobs that don't even exist yet. 10 years ago, many jobs didn't exist. Social media managers, app developers, data scientists, drone operators, sustainability managers, and many more. We can conclude, therefore, that in 2035, there will be jobs that don't currently exist. It is our responsibility to prepare our students for them. But here's the challenge. Too many young people lose confidence in these subjects long before they ever even find their potential. If we wait until middle school or high school to ignite their curiosity, we've already lost precious time. If we don't spark their love for STEM at an early age, we risk losing brilliant minds before they even discover what they can do. I see it regularly in my classroom, a student that doesn't meet their map goal, but designs and builds the best cooler to keep a popsicle frozen, or designs and builds that contraption that protects Humpty Dumpty from his fall from the highest height in the class. This is what STEM does. It unlocks potential. STEM should be in all of our schools. By investing in STEM at the elementary level through hands-on learning, critical thinking, and problem solving, We give students the foundation to not only survive, but thrive in a fast-changing world. Please consider making a commitment to making STEM a priority in all of our schools, to not just prepare students for the future, but let's inspire them to create it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a teacher.
Thank you.
And our next one is, my friend, Frank Cobb.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, board members, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Last month, we saw Act 2 of the school report card fiasco. We saw firsthand that if you change the color red to pink, it doesn't look so bad. And we found out that we can't expect high schools to have good attitudes every day. We learned that Westside was only 2 points from being average, like that was some great achievement. But what they didn't tell us was that Hannah was only 2 points from falling from excellent to good. I guess they just overlooked that. I'd like to know how many packs of cigarettes these people went through to blow that much smoke during their presentation. I bet that little production cost the taxpayers at least $1,000 a minute to get all those heads together to put on that MSNBC propaganda show. But no matter how you paint it, red or pink is still failing, and our students and taxpayers are still being cheated. For the past 3.5 years, I have followed the District 5 board meetings pretty closely. It was quite obvious that the board meetings were just a run-through, a done deal of already decided agenda items. It was just a public display of already cooked decisions. Now that you're having to openly discuss matters, it's obvious to everyone that y'all are not used to thinking on the job. So now you expect compensation for all this excruciating hard work. It's downright obvious that in the past someone was giving you the answers and all you had to do was to follow instructions and raise your hand on cue. Now we see whining, grown men instead of community leaders. I admire people who work hard to provide for their families, but the school board is not the place for that. If you need another job, a second job, just leave. We will understand. We've had enough of your kind of leadership anyway. We don't need any more artificial turf or another Molech worship temple downtown. If you leave, then your replacements can get back to accountability, which is seriously lacking around here. Gentlemen, this is not the place to make a living. This is the place to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. Andrew Cannon.
Thank you. So I have kids at Southwood and at Calhoun. We've been in the district for 9 years. I'm in the School Improvement Council at Calhoun. My wife serves on the PTO board. And we're both parent volunteers over at Southwood. So we try to stay involved with the kids' schools. First, I want to say a few thank yous. Thank you to Superintendent Kelly. I sent you a lot of emails the last few months, and you've always responded really quickly with reasonable responses, help me understand what's going on. I know the teachers at Calhoun I've talked with are happy to have a former Calhoun teacher experience in classroom as a superintendent. So thanks. And then Mr. Bradshaw, I'm in your area. I've sent you a bunch of emails. Thank you for responding to them and helping me out. Recently, there's debris in the road that was kind of a pain for my kids to ride their bicycles to school through, and you helped clean that up and find the right person to clean it up. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Kay.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you voicing some concerns at the last board meeting, I think it was February 18th. I experienced as a voter going into the polls and having someone tell me to vote for the school board. I thought that was inappropriate, and I'm glad that you're speaking up for voters like me.
Thank you, sir.
So there's some other concerns that I did have with the last election. That was mainly about the extreme partisanship that I saw. And School board positions, I've always understood were supposed to be nonpartisan, so just focus on children first, like the notation mentioned. There's a code of ethics that talks about focusing on children first, and the code of ethics also talks about refusing to play politics in either the traditional partisan or independent sense. In the last election, I saw things like Republican Party elephant symbols on campaign signs, and mass text messages announcing Republican Party endorsements. Those seem like the sort of examples that the code of ethics would do. So I think there's good reason that we try to make them nonpartisan. And so I think the reason is to shield our kids from the whims of Washington, D.C. politicians. We have a very local set of challenges. I think we need very local solutions that have nothing to do with something the Republican Party might approve of or the Democratic Party might approve of. It's just a different thing. It's too local. So there is a draft policy circulating. I think that you've all received it in your email inboxes. It drills down in specific terms about what is unacceptable partisan behavior. I hope that you will review that policy and please adopt the policy that you're playing partisan politics. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Jenny Pray.
Good evening.
Good
My name is
evening.
Jennifer Prey, and I'm a resident of Ward Area 7. I have 3 children currently attending District 5 schools, 1 at Concord and 2 at Southwood. I'm here tonight as an enthusiastic supporter of public education. I've worked as a teacher in Anderson 5, and I've put in hours upon hours at my kids' school as the PTA treasurer. And I've seen all the good things happening here in our district. We have so much going for us. We have a superintendent who genuinely cares about the children she serves. I was told today that she's actually mentoring a child at Concord right now. We have devoted, highly qualified teachers. We have administration who display caring, positive leadership. We have staff that show up every day and put in the work. And they're all there for the same reason that you are here tonight, because we owe it to our children to give them the best we can offer. I appreciate the service you are all doing. I know that it is a sacrifice. I know that you are all passionate about what you think is right. However, as I have watched the last 2 meetings, I was unable to attend in person, but I did watch them. I have not seen a unified board focused on what is best for Anderson's children. I have seen animosity and division, neither of which will do our schools any good. Echoing what Mr. Cannon said, there is a proposal out there for a board policy ensuring that board members remain nonpartisan. And I think that might be a step toward ensuring that political allegiances don't get in the way of the work to be done. It would be a gesture of goodwill and transparency to prove that the only agenda y'all have is the one in front of you. I'd love to see that proposal on the next agenda. But even if it isn't, I do hope that you will all be faithful to the task for which you were elected. I hope that you will focus on all the good that is already being done here and all the good there is yet to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My dear friend, John Griffith.
Hey, Dr. Kelly, Chairwoman, members of the board. As you know, I was a board member for 12 years, and I learned a few things in doing that, and I learned a few things in not being on the board. It's a little bit different being an outsider, and I see things a little differently from that perspective, and actually sort of sympathize with Mr. Thompson and kind of understand where he was coming from the last few years. Anyway, I didn't really prepare anything to say tonight. I have a couple things in my mind I thought of on the way over here. One of them was a couple of lessons I learned from being on the board, and that was that I think we make some decisions too quickly. It comes up, we say, well, let's just decide that's too expensive, that's too big deal, whatever it is. We don't bother to find out if the community would support it. And we're not letting the community know ahead of time that these things are coming up. Yeah, they get to know 2, 3 days, 4 days before the board meeting maybe, but that's not really getting the word out. Nobody really knows that. Most people don't know there is a board meeting or where it is or what board area they're in or anything else. And what I'm asking you to do is think of things like For instance, I regret the vote I made about Southwood in 2013. Superintendent said, hey, it's too expensive, we can't do it. It's, you know, it's a small high school, that's super expensive, we don't have a budget, we're not going to support that. And I regret that we didn't do it. At the time, I thought it was the right decision. That's too expensive, we can't do it, that sounds outrageous, you know, it's way too high. But what happened is, we found out right after that the community really supported that. They wanted that school, they wanted it to be a high school, they wanted an arts high school. And we said no, and we had a big backlash from that, and we never really fixed it. And that's something I think you need to take into consideration. What do we do about those sort of things in the future? Do we let the community know and then we make a decision, or we just make a decision and say we got to commit to it? Because I think that's what we done on the board, that's what I did when I was on the board, I'm sorry we did it that way. I think the word should get out and let people know, what's going on and find out if the community supports it or not. If you want to do something, not do it, is it really that important? Can we make a decision this week, this month? Can we wait till next month when everybody hears about it? Can we say this month, hey, we're thinking about doing this? Does the community like that? And then next month we decide whether we're gonna do it or not, if there's been enough time and, you know, there's been some community, response. Also, I would like you to take up the nonpartisan policy that I, wrote up, and, you know, I did that fairly quickly. I'm a lawyer, you know, it's my sort of thing. I don't know if I didn't do more of that when I was on the board. But anyway, I think that would be a good step in the right direction to kind of keep things focused on kids. If the idea is good, then we can do it. It doesn't matter whose idea it is. We did that for a long time, ever since, you know, there've been school boards, as far as I know, they've been nonpartisan, and everything's worked fairly well. Nothing's without criticism. I don't deny that. But I think overall, our school district's doing very well. I'm proud of Dr. Kelly, and I appreciate what y'all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
John, thank you for your service.
Thank you for all that came to speak to us tonight, and it gives us something to think about. And we will do that. We will think about it, we will work with it. Me being your chair, I will repeat it again, and we will do something about things that you're talking about, because that's why I'm here, for my schools and my children and my teachers. And thank you for coming to talk to us about it. Now we have the superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. We're gonna have Amy Hurdcom. She's gonna give us our monthly financial reports and also our budget updates for the 25-26 school year.
Dr. Kelly, Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. You received your packet on Friday with the financial information in there. And as we decided last month, I was gonna use the same setup for you each month. It gives you a little bit of consistency so you can look at the numbers differently. So at the very top, you will see that this shows a comparison of the February 28, 2024 versus the February 28, 2025 numbers. The first item up there is our current year fund balance. So as you can see, we are about $1.6 million less at this time this year than we were last year. You can see that, oh, and just one thing on that, just so everybody is aware, we do, this is new for this current year, we do report that monthly to the state. So we do provide our monthly fund balance to the state for the legislators. Then looking at our revenues, again, the ones that we talk about typically is property tax revenue, and as I've mentioned several times, by the end of February, we should have a good look at our property taxes from homeowners. Some come in later than the January deadline, but most of them are in by the end of January, the 1st of February. So the $44 million over to the far right column, that is what we received year to date on property taxes. And you can see that most of that came in December and January, but we did still have a little over $9 million come in, but the $44 million will have to carry us for the remainder of the year. That is our biggest funding source outside of our state funds, and now that money is in and really will carry us for the rest of the year. You can see that it's a little bit higher than last year. We did not ask for millage, so that is assessment growth in Anderson 5. Also, one that we've talked about consistently is our investment income. that is, sorry. Memories keep popping up. Okay, so investment income, you can see it is a little bit lower this month, this time, this year than last year. But if you look down there to the bottom where it says LGIP investment rate, that's local government investment pool. That's where we keep our funds. And you can see that the rate is almost exactly 1% less this year than last year. So the decrease in our investment income is it's not planned. We would love for it to stay up, but it's due to the market rates. Next, you'll see our state revenues. They've declined slightly over the same time last year. That's probably just a reflection of the number of students in Anderson 5. Nothing major there. And then our transfers from states and grants, there's a little bit less money than there, and that is due to less ESSER money available this year. We get a portion of ESSER money that comes into the general fund, and as you know, that ended September 30th. We had until December 31st to pay all the bills and claim all the funds. So that is the reason that we have less in that account. On the expense side of the general fund for February, you can see that we are a little higher than the same time last year. Again, that is expected. We gave pay raises to all employees. Again, just nothing unexpected there as well. One item of note that I did want to share with you is on your revenue, we have a line item called fee in lieu of, and it was a lot more than I anticipated when I saw the payment come in from the county this time. So I reached out to the treasurer and the auditor to ask if there was something that had changed, because that is something that is determined by county council. Anderson 5 doesn't have any control over the fee in lieu agreements that the county sets for our district or any district in our county. And so we are at the mercy of them when we set our budget on that number, and I'll talk to them every year, so I was a little surprised when this came in so high. And it was due to 2 of our manufacturing plants adding additional machines and reporting to the State Department of Revenue. And so that was the reason for the increase. So when I was talking to Mr. Phillips, the treasurer, I asked, is that something that we should expect to continue? Because if so, then we may need to adjust our budget. He is doing some work to see if it was a one-time adjustment or if that is something that we will continue receiving. But he did say if we do receive it, to expect depreciation on the items, so the number would probably not be as high next year. He said to expect about a 10% less decrease from those 2 if we continue to get it. So I'll keep y'all updated.
Amy, that's PT 100 stuff.
You know,
Some of that
it's fee in lieu of, so I'm
Okay,
not
definitely
really
factors
sure
in
if
that.
no, we have another line item in the
Okay.
budget, for our property tax, for the PT 100.
Okay.
So I was a little unsure of that, so
When-
he was
when-
reaching out to the state to see.
When we do when the county does the fee in lieu of, does it affect furniture and fixtures as well, or just the building itself?
I don't really know, to be honest.
I stumped.
Yes, I'm not sure, I don't wanna tell you something.
I was just curious about that, because it's, for some of these industries, that's huge, that
The property.
PT 100 be astronomical.
I mean, because that's,
Both, that's more expensive than building.
exactly, I mean,
Okay.
I'm just thinking about a Michelin,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
exactly.
comfortable with.
Okay.
All the machinery is in an aluminum, I mean, the building's not,
Yeah,
it's the machinery inside of it
Right.
that makes the place run. So, I'm not.
I just find that, I was curious, I got to think about that the
We
other
can
day.
find out if that impacts it. You know, with the fee in lieu of, it's supposed to be their property taxes. But they're supposed to have investments in the county and increase their
Mhm.
workforce and all of those things. And the county has said they don't have the staffing to go make sure that the companies do what they say they're gonna do, obviously. But I will find out for you
Thank
if that, the fee in lieu of impacts the
Thank you.
equipment as well. So I think we're in really good shape. I don't see anything of concern. Our revenue's coming in strong. Our expenses are a little more than the same time last year, which we knew that. Our budget increased last year, so that is not unexpected for us. And then, and we want to talk about our sales tax. This is the collection. We look at the 2 years, and so I wanted to show you December. So December of 2024, we collected $1.3 million In December of 2024, we collected $1.5 million. That's the highest collection for 1 month in its inception, going all the way back to the beginning, and by a good bit. The 1.36 was the highest prior to that. December is always our largest month, obviously just due to Christmas shopping and things that are going on in the community where folks are spending money. But a very, very strong month, because we had been talking, and some of our months had gone up and down. If you look at October, we were 1.315, then we went to 1.309, and we had not been trending down each month. So I was getting a little concerned because, you know, we were 1.24, 1.167. This year's been the first year that I've seen the trend down in months. But this month sure knocked it out of the park with our $1.5 million. So
Can you back up one page, please?
Sure.
To the other page you're on.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. Total general fund, line 13, the right-hand column, far so. Explain that one to people.
Okay, so these two columns right here, this is what our general fund expenditures were as of 2/28/24. It was 83.4 million.
Okay.
And as of 2/28/25,
Okay.
we've spent 87.8
Got it.
million.
Thank you, ma'am.
So far. Sure. Any questions on the financial statements?
And how many more years we got left on the sales
The
tax?
sales tax ends in February of 2030. Collections in February of 2030. We'll, you know, they're 2 months behind, so we will continue to get payments through April of 2030. And the board did make a motion back in August of 21 that you guys have set aside the money from the sales tax for the bond payments that will happen after the sales tax collections end. So we have that set aside, so those sales tax funds will not be used.
And I assume that's drawing interest like this other is as well. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is that is that showing that interest there?
No, sir.
Oh, that's separate.
That's separate.
Okay.
I have one question. On the documents you sent us, I think it was titled Financial Statements. It was showing under assets, it was showing $117 million in the local government investment pool. And then there was a line item of $50 million some odd dollars due from capital projects. Can you quickly tell me what that due from capital projects is? And if it can't be done quickly, you don't have to do that.
No, that is, that's money that the capital projects, it's a negative. So it really is a liability. It's just that those fluctuate back and forth. So that is money that, I think I just want to make sure I get it right for you. Get it right for you. That is money that the general fund pays out that we have not collected back from that yet. So the general fund pays all the bills, and then we transfer the money between the accounts. Move over to the budget. All right. So we've talked about our budgeting process. I'm gonna jump straight into where we are in the state budget process. What you're gonna see tonight, our numbers that you are gonna see are from the House Ways and Means budget. The House has completed the budget process, but we have not received the numbers yet. If they are different from House Ways and Means, we will get an updated revenue projection from the state. And then the Senate Finance is where the budget started today in subcommittee. So that's, you'll see that we're gonna move all the way through the process, and we really finished up the House, and now we're going to Senate Finance. So just kind of important dates to make you aware of, like I just mentioned, the Senate budget subcommittees are scheduled from March 18th to April 3rd. The House bodies moved really quickly through the budget, so I'm not exactly sure why the Senate has so much time set aside. Maybe they're, I don't know. I'm not even gonna guess why they have that much time, and they may not need it, but that is what they have set aside for the Senate budget subcommittees. Then the Senate Finance will go into full committee meetings April 8th through the 10th. And then the Senate itself will not debate their budget bill until April 22nd through the 24th. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because we have another board meeting on the 22nd, and the Senate will not have even debated the budget yet. So what I'm gonna be sharing with you, what every finance person in the state's gonna be sharing with their boards is our best estimate and our numbers that we're receiving and hearing from the state. But as you can see, they're not going to conference committee, they're not even gonna take it to conference committee till the 6th. And last year, they didn't take up conference committee till about the middle to end of June. So, do I think you're gonna have final numbers from Columbia anytime in the near future? I do not. I think that we're gonna have to make decisions on what we're hearing from Columbia at the time. And if something major changes, then we will have to adjust based on that. They're pretty good to tell us what they're thinking as they're in conference committee. Obviously, why they go to conference committee is because the House and the Senate don't match on items. Sometimes they can meet fairly quickly and agree on certain items. It may be one or two items that's really holding up everything. Last year, it was a public education K-12 issue that was holding up the budget. So they come out pretty early and said, we're in agreement on the K-12 stuff. And so we were able to say, okay, the budget is not coming out of Columbia for another couple of weeks, but we feel very good with the information that we're sharing with you. But if something changes, we will let you know, and obviously the board will have to make the decisions on what changes with that. It did not. This is a typical process every year that we do with them, but I wanted you to be aware of that because I'm gonna be giving you different numbers every time that we probably meet. And at some point, we will have to kind of make at least initial decisions so we can continue moving forward with what the board wants to do to prepare the budget to get ready for next year.
That's heard, so thank you. That explains to people why we have to pass a budget before we know how much money we're gonna get.
Yes.
People say, how do you pass a budget? We don't know. We have to pass our budget regardless of what they do.
We do. I mean, the county board's gonna expect us to give them everything by the end of May.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
June, sometimes even July before we hear
You're
anything.
gonna
Yeah,
present the
exactly.
budget the middle of June to the county board, and we probably are not gonna have answers from Columbia when we present.
So
it.
that ought to
But
answer
neither
that
is
question
any
for
school district in
people.
the state. It's not that we're not giving information out to you guys, we're all getting the same information. And like I said, we all have, school finance people have folks down there listening to conversations and working with the legislators. Mr. Newton is down there talking and listening and working with legislators and bringing back what he's hearing. And typically, when they tell us something is set, it really doesn't change. 10 years ago, I would have told you the House is gonna do the budget and the Senate, we're gonna get more money in, so we kind of used to keep a running list of additional items that we might wanna put in the budget. The last few years, that's been a little bit of role reversal. The House has been a little more generous to public education than the Senate has. This year, it may be completely different. We just are at their mercy right now. But I think we'll have a pretty good idea. I think we'll have a really good idea by the May meeting what is going on. But everything that you're gonna see tonight is House Ways and Means numbers. And then I will make sure that each month you know where we are in the process and what numbers we're using, as we're doing our calculations.
Can I ask about the elephant in the room?
Yes, sir.
Federal budget cuts. Do we know anything yet?
Not yet. Dr. Kelly has gone to a meeting that she may can shed more light on that than I can.
I went to the superintendent roundtable meeting, this past week, and Penny Schwinn, who is going to be, if certified, is going to be, working with, Donald Trump and his office. And she was talking about that because that was a question on hand from many superintendents. And she said that as of this year right now, there has been no discussion at all of reducing Title I funds. So
Okay.
that was good news for us because we do understand the importance of Title I funds. As I was meeting with Blake Sanders on Friday, he and I were discussing that as well. And we went through each of the Title I and II, III, IV, and V, and about how those funds are used and allocated within our district. And so, as of right now, what we are hearing is that those funds will not be cut.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Yes, sir.
So that is good news, because Title I is where most of our employees are.
Yeah.
IDEA would be the other big pot that I'm not hearing a lot, that
What,
when they're talking.
what percentage
it's
of our
like-
budget would be Title I, would you guess off the top of your head?
Okay.
What percentage of our budget is Title I?
We get about $3 million for Title I. It's about 3.2 million. Special ed is right at 3 million. They're almost exactly the same. Our allocations are pretty close.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The
I
total,
heard-
I'm sorry.
I heard one school's already got noticed they were gonna get their budget cut because of IDAs.
Because of
The IDAs, is it the IDA?
IDE.
IDEs,
the special ed,
yeah.
I don't think that it's the special ed funding that's being cut. I think it is, the program, we're reviewing the program in total, and the director is looking at the needs of each student in the schools. So, yes, I do know that, special ed has been working with each principal on their number of students, the number of teachers, the shift in mindset on our special ed program going forward. But that doesn't have anything to do with the federal dollars.
Our total federal dollars?
Well, that just depends, because like ESSER would, so I mean, I can give you this extravagant number that it used to be, but
No, but it is today.
You know, without answer.
without
Without
ESSER, I would say about 15 million. The biggest ones are obviously IDEA, special ed, Title I and poverty, Title II, improvement teacher quality, Title III is our multilingual, Title IV is your well-rounded. We don't get Title V, some districts do. It's due to our geography, not due to anything that we've done, it's just location of our district. We have homeless in there, we have a little bit of ROTC money for our high schools, Medicaid is in there, so that's probably that's the major.
How about USDA cuts to that? Is that gonna affect our programs for food and our free lunches and?
Ms. Price, we're not anticipating any reductions for any schools.
Thank you.
I can't speak for the percentages of the other schools.
Okay.
That's good news all around,
Right now.
right now. One day at a time during budget season, that's the way we live. Okay, I know last month we talked about some legislation, and I've got some more that I just wanna, again, put on your radar. So the one last month was about the, property taxes on, boats. I've not heard an update on that. So we will update you as we get additional information. I don't know if it's slowed down, if it's stopped, if it's still moving through the process. But the new ones that we want to bring to your attention is that the state has put out their teacher salaries, again, this is House Ways and Means, has put out their teacher salary schedule for next year, and they are eliminating the category of bachelor's plus 18 from the state scale. That does not mean that Anderson 5 is going to eliminate it. Our thought process, unless the board tells us differently, is to follow the same method that we followed when the state did this during 2020 with the master's plus 18. What we did then was, if you currently have a bachelor's plus 18, we keep that scale and we don't let new people onto that scale. When the state stops funding it, we stop letting folks into it, but we run that scale until we don't have anybody on it. So if you go to our website, you look at our teacher salary schedules, there is a salary schedule that says master's plus 18. Even though we don't get funded for that anymore, and there's a note at the bottom that says that scale was frozen in 2020. We will put a note on this scale for this year that says the bachelor's plus 18 is frozen as of July 1, 2025, because the state is not going to fund that scale. So they had 6, they went to 5, now they're going down to 4. Bachelor's, master's plus 30, and doctorate. That's the 4 categories for teachers. So we will follow that going forward as of July 1, but anybody on the scale will still be paid on the bachelor's plus 18 scale, and again, unless we hear otherwise, we'll still make adjustments to that scale as well. Okay, the other is the Educators Assistance Act. This one is, both houses are working on this one. I feel like something will come out of that will have impacts to the school district. I don't know how much of it will be financial impacts to the district, but I do know that this is a big one that you probably are hearing about as board members. It's gonna look at certification, it's gonna look at PD days, it's gonna look at contract days. There's some sick leave requirements in there. Our school district already has a sick leave bank, but some school districts don't, and there's some requirements depending on how this shakes out everywhere. Some salary schedules, some assignments for teachers. So I just want you to be aware of this one. This is a big piece of legislation right here that does impact our school district, and will have a lot of different areas that we'll need to look at, but I'm not sure that they will have much financial impact on it. One that will have financial impact is the recess and PE. What they're looking at is adding 20 minutes of unstructured time for recess for 4K through 8th grade. I know that some instructional folks and educators have been down to, I don't know anybody from Anderson 5, maybe they have been, I'm not aware. I just have heard that some school districts have been down there, to ask what should be cut out instructionally to provide this time. With all of the requirements that the schools have, what are they going to allow to be cut instructionally to ensure that they can allow this 20 minutes? And Dr. Kelly or Ms. Gay, y'all may can speak to what we currently do.
I know currently for elementary, it is 25 minutes. We have some time built in at middle school, but it's not unified across every middle school. So some middle schools give a 10 to 15 minutes attached to their lunch time, but that is not unified, whereas this would unify that. It would be a mandate.
So some of this may not, we may already meet the requirement in some places. The other piece that is big for this is the PE requirement for grades 6 through 8. And I did not put down what it is. They have a certain amount of hours of PE that you have to get in per year. And that's where it's probably gonna take some maneuvering. But there are some exemptions for middle schoolers that are taking high school courses, because high school courses have set limits that they have to take as well, and they don't want the new PE rule to take over. They don't want the PE rule to overtake the high school credit classes. So again, this has just gone through the House. It hasn't come out yet, so it hasn't come out from both bodies. So that's just one we're keeping an eye on that I wanted you to know about. Again, this is not something that our board or school district has talked about, but there is a bill, Senate Bill 79, that says all schools are eligible to hire up to 10% of their staff not having certification. Again, that is not something that Dr. Kelly is promoting whatsoever. We want to have certified teachers in our classroom. This is being discussed due to the teaching shortage. We are so short on teachers in the state that they are going to allow anybody that has a bachelor's degree and they've worked 5 years in education to work toward their certification in a classroom. Does that sound good?
I moved into instruction.
So, you'll have to train them. So again, this is not something we're looking at, but it is something that a lot of school districts are having to look at. And the reason that this is of note that I have all schools, because originally, it was kind of strange. The original legislation said excellent and below average were the only two schools that could do this. You had to have one of those ratings, and now they've taken that out and said that any school is eligible to do this. And then finally, both bills are working on pieces of legislation for the education scholarship that we have talked about in the past, about the money following students to other public schools, private schools, etc. So just want to let you know that. So here's our numbers as of right now. Anything that you see in red on the next 2 pages from revenue standpoint is new to what you saw last month. So last month, we had already received from the state that our Tier 3 allocation was slightly over $2 million increase. Now, aid to classroom, this is where we get paid for our teachers, based on our numbers of students and teachers, and it's just a very big convoluted calculation that the state does. How fast we grow compared to every other state in the how fast our district grows in relation to every other district in the state, is what I'm trying to say. Is a part of that calculation, the state fringes, we get that, the EIA funding, some of our funding, this goes with the teacher funding, but these are funding sources. So aid to classroom is what the state says is in their general fund, just like our general fund. They have a general fund, we have a general fund. That's what aid to classroom is coming in of. A portion of their money is coming from EIA. That's an act from 1984 where they added another 1% sales tax onto the state for education funding. And so part of it's coming from EIA, but it goes back into the general fund for this exact same thing. But the way they present it to us in the school district, we have to report it separately, so that's why it's shown separately. And then health insurance, that's the amount that we should receive for health insurance. Yes, sir.
I know this was based on something that's changed. Have those numbers gone down or up, or it's just different? Some have gone down, some have gone up.
Yes, sir. It is, our numbers would have gone down because our students have gone down.
Okay.
However, there are, I don't know the exact number, but I would say based on what I have heard in the past, 4 or 5 districts that have grown in the number of students and lost money. So they are very much down there with the legislators talking. One of the biggest ones is Spartanburg 7, has grown in numbers and lost money. Because what's getting public education or public school districts is we're in the same pot with the special school districts and the charter school districts. And we're not growing as fast as they are. So Spartanburg 7 is a growing district and they're growing in numbers, but they're not growing as fast as some charter schools. So when they put all that together, they're losing money. It used to be that I could stand up here and show you the calculation and just get you almost to the exact penny on base student cost. Mr. Dukes, I know you've heard that many years. That's what we lived and died by, was base student cost. It had its faults. Definitely had its faults. But at least I could calculate and tell the board with some certainty what we were gonna get. I am completely at the mercy of the State Department of Education on all of these numbers now, because they have to compare our numbers compared to everybody in the district. Every school district in South Carolina has to just wait on the State Department now.
Thank you.
But to answer your question, our numbers would have gone down.
So when they're talking about growth, are you talking about school district growth, or are you talking about county growth?
I'm talking, on this one, they're talking about the number and the number of students in the school district. Yes, student enrollment. The student enrollment growth is not as fast as a Fort or Fort Mill, whichever one Fort Mill is, or a charter school, or one of the special schools. They're not growing as fast as them, so they get a lower modifier. And we've lost kids, so obviously our modifier is very low. And then for those of you that's been here a while, the other piece that goes into that is how wealthy you are as a district compared to the state. So the Horry, the Berkeley, the Charleston counties, they have a very high wealth because of where they're located on which Anderson County is not bad either on our wealth as a district compared to the state, but that plays into that calculation as well. As they look at it and they say, well, you're a wealthy state, you can raise money on your own, so the state's not gonna give you as much. Where they're gonna look at an Orangeburg and say, you don't have the ability to raise as much as a Charleston County, so the state's gonna fund you more percentage, and that goes into the calculation as
When
well.
you say wealth, is that based on areas like that? They're gonna have second homes, rental homes?
That's gonna be based on property taxes.
So that's a gold mine for them down there.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, nobody can compare with the
Okay.
coast line.
Okay.
Okay, and then, so, I know last month we talked about millage, and we knew the state CPI, and now we know the Anderson 5 population growth, not student enrollment, population growth in Anderson County, Anderson 5 lines. That is 1.43% over last year. So you add those two together, and the state says Anderson 5 Board of Trustees can raise their millage 4.38 mills. Our current millage is 1.91, so that means that we could raise it 8.37 mills. However, we have local legislation that we could not raise it more than 8 mills. And if the board chose to do that, that would add an additional $2 million of potential funding. Again, just like I said last month, that That is not administration's recommendation. I am sharing the information with you so that you have it for future, as you're making decisions, you will have all of the information. Okay, so then we look over at our mandatory cost. The state has come out, again, when I say the state, House Ways and Means, has come out and said that there's not gonna be an increase for employers. There is going to be a health insurance increase for employees. It's expected to be $36.76 per month for $441 annually. That's based on the standard plan. The state gives you some options. You've got the basic plan, which is a little less of a monthly cost, but it doesn't have as good a coverage. Most, I would say, most folks take the standard plan. That's just kind of just the basic one. That meets all of the requirements for a health insurance plan, and so that will be raised by $36 a month. I did ask when the last time we had an employee health insurance increase was, and the state was gonna get back with me, which they haven't yet. I know that's not a high priority to them. I haven't found one in about the last 5 or 6 years. I just didn't wanna, I wanted to hear it from them and not rely on my budget presentations from previous years.
Is that mandated by the state? They have to pay that, or could the district absorb it for them? So you're probably looking at $1 million to absorb that much, I'm sure.
That's a good question. I don't think we can pay it for the employees.
Okay, that's
because it's pre-tax and on the W-2s, and I think we're getting into tax things. What we could do is just make sure we'd have to increase their pay.
Okay.
To offset that. We can't pay people directly,
Okay.
which is who manages.
Oh, that's why that,
yes,
okay.
who handles the health insurance plan. Retirement, I'm not hearing that there's going to be an employer and retirement increase. There typically is a surcharge increase, but it's normally like 0.15%. So we have not heard from them if we're gonna have that yet, so hopefully we'll know that by next month. Workers' compensation and property insurance, we typically get that very end of April, early May, so hopefully I'll see what we can do, if I can push them and get that for us before our April 22nd meeting. The state does mandate that we give teachers a step increase. You know, the teacher salary schedule that we've talked about before that's mandated by the state. The step increase for our teachers right now is $708,950 that we're mandated to give. And bus drivers are Anderson 5 employees, but when it comes to raises, the state mandates what we have to give them. I think that's because most of the state, because the buses are state-owned, and a lot of the workers that service our buses are state employees. So that's why they ensure that our district bus drivers get the same thing as the state workers that work in the bus system. So we have to increase that by 2% on the state scale. That's not 2% on our salary schedule, that's 2% on the state scale. So you wanted to do that?
Last year it was 2% on the salary, wasn't it?
They've done several things, and what it used to be was 2%, it's always been 2% of the state scale, but it used to be if you paid more than the state scale, you didn't have to do it. Last year, or maybe it was even the year before now, they said it doesn't matter if you pay above that, you still have to give at least the percentage, the 2% increase. And so, because the state starting pay is like $11.50 something, and ours is now over at $20. So, but we still have to give the 2% on the 11 onto our $20.
But one year we had to give the 2% on the 20.
One time we gave the 2% and what we gave the district as well. So we've done a lot of different things. And then just looking at some of the items that the board has requested, we've got the additional multilingual translator position. This is not a teaching position. This would be another translator position for the district. And again, I just want to make sure that we're very clear with everybody that these salaries includes all of the benefits associated with that. FICA, retirement, and health insurance. And health insurance can be anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 per employee that the employer pays, depending on what coverage they choose. And we don't pick the highest rate to get here. We kind of pick in between the highest two to get there. Additionally, moving a current part-time office staff member to full-time at Robert Anderson. 25 additional teaching assistants, the board compensation that we've talked about. There has been talk of collecting the 4K tuition that paying parents pay into the schools and moving that over to the district instead of keeping that at the school level. Now, obviously, that will change yearly because the whole purpose of CERDEP, which is what the state 4K program is that Anderson 5 uses, is it's an at-risk education program. So our first priority is students at risk that we want in our 4K program. And if you qualify and you meet the requirements, there is no pay for that. The only reason that somebody would pay to go to 4K is that we have openings at schools where we have gotten through the entire wait list and we're not full, and then we can allow paying students to come in to that. So just so you'll know there, that's what that would be. It would be hard to put it in the budget because it may be 30,000 one year and it might be 10,000 the next year. The board would just have to be very, they would just have to know that whatever you set, we might meet that budget one year and we might not meet it ever again, or we might exceed it by double the next year. So that's that. Obviously, we talked about the discussion of paying out a sick leave over 90 days. And it had, just using daily rate, it had a huge price tag to it. This would be anybody that does not earn vacation, so it would be folks less than 220 contract days. So to get us a price, I'll need to know the amount that we would want to pay out, and then we can calculate that. And then we also have talked about assistance pay that we'll talk about a little bit later in the slideshow. Some additional items that we've added during this school year that we would like to continue for next year would be our elementary alternative school class that's at CF Reams. This is a teacher, an assistant, and the supplies associated with the classroom. The private security, we have private security when we can't secure an SRO for the school. We have those, and then we also have added one at Robert Anderson, an additional one, so they have an SRO and Defender Services. We added extra security at events at Anderson 5, and that's the cost associated with that. And then we currently have the mentor program that I believe one of our speakers talked about, Dr. Kelly being a mentor. I know a lot of the administrative team and folks in the school district do have mentors since we started that program this year. And it's currently being paid through a grant that ends June 30th. And to continue keeping that going with the training and the necessary requirements, we think that would cost about $15,000. Some other items that we're working on that, one is a teacher salary increase. The state governor and the state superintendent of education both came out and asked for the starting salary for teachers to be $50,000. So it's currently $47,000. It would go to $50,000. They wanted it to go full. House Ways and Means came out and said $1,500. They're not giving the full $3,000. They would give $1,500 on the salary schedule. So we use the same $1,500. Anderson 5 currently starts their teachers at $50,000. So the state mandate is $47,000. Anderson 5 is at $50,000, and we're looking at $1,500 on top of that. So that would cost $1.693 million to increase all sales on the teacher salary schedule by $1,500.
So the mandate would be to increase it even if you're above the minimum?
So we don't have to.
Okay, gotcha.
That's completely up to the school district. One of the Anderson districts currently is below what the requirement is going to be 48.5, and they are currently below that rate. So they're looking at increasing it a lot more, and our $1,500 will still put us ahead of them.
And you said one of the other Anderson school districts? Okay.
And excluding that school district, I've talked to the other three as well. The rest, the 4 school districts are within about $2 of each other. We're all at $50,000, one's at $50,000 and $2. The rest of us are looking at $1,500 increases, and one school district, I believe, is looking at a $4,000 increase. But again, they are below the $47,000. they're below they would be below the 48.5 that's going to be required. The cost of living adjustment, we looked at, so the teacher salary increase right here, the $1,500 is a 3% increase on bachelor's plus 0. So on the starting salary scale, this is about a 3%. And depending on where you fall on the teacher's salary schedule, it's anywhere from 3% and the lowest is about 1.7. So just depending on where you fall in that category. The 1.7 would be a doctorate with 28 years. So we looked at that, calculate that. Then we looked at a 2% for non-teaching staff, and you can see that's $637,000. If the board wanted to do 1%, you actually can cut that in half. If you wanted to do 3%, we can take it and go. So we can do whatever's the wishes of the board. This number that you see right now does exclude principals, since we're going to be discussing them tonight in executive session. And it also excludes the bus drivers, since we talked that we have to follow the state on the mandate for the.
But on a lot of these employees, that would even cover the cost of insurance increase. I bet.
It should on most people now.
That's
they
about
might-
it.
That's about it, yes, sir.
I mean, that's about all it's gonna do.
Yes, yes.
Kinda like Medicare. Social Security goes up and Medicare premiums go up.
Cause I'm just sitting here thinking about our lowest paid at 2%. They should get the 441, but it
That's a-
wouldn't be a lot.
it would be
They're
no
not
rate- it'd be no
taxes.
rate,
It'd be
but-
no raise.
So, you mentioned $441 for the,
Health insurance.
mandated by the state. And the only way to do that would be to up their salaries if we wanted to pay it for them. So if we went each scale, instead of 1,500 per cell, we went to 2,000 per cell? Would
Well,
that,
I can do that calculation.
that would cover the 441?
Well, the 1,500 will cover the 441.
Right,
Um,
but it kind of makes it where they're not getting much of a raise each month.
Yes, sir. But some of the people on the second one, like Mr. Price is saying, 2% on 14,000 is not much either.
That's right, especially when you taking away 441. So adding it back in either place would be a,
Yes, sir. And whatever is the pleasure of the board, if you will tell me what you would like calculated, I will absolutely show you all of the numbers, and whatever you would like to do, we will work to get you there. Now, one thing that does help for both teachers and for non-teaching staff, is the way I'm trying to say everybody else, is the step increases. So the state mandates the step increase for teachers. We don't have a choice. We do have a choice, Mr. Thompson, in going above. We don't have to give them the 1,500, but we do have to give them the step increase. 1,500 for the teachers is completely up to the board. The cost of living and the step increase is completely up to the board for everybody else, except for the bus drivers, again, that we know is state mandated. I still need to work on that number. That means taking everybody currently, putting them in the new year, calculating the new salaries, comparing them back to last year. I apologize. That's the one thing that I hadn't gotten to yet. So we will get that number to you. That was just a little bit complicated. I didn't want to give you a number that I didn't feel good about. The principal salary changes, we will discuss that tonight in executive session. We'll pick up where we left off last week. A 4% utility increase is around $61,000. And maintenance of effort, this is a 1% increase, and this is what we would give to the special education teachers in the general fund. So again, what we're talking about, federal funds give us a little over $3 million for our IDEA or our special needs students. Then the state makes us put additional money on top of that to meet the requirement. We currently have a little over $11 million in the general fund that we pay for our special education department, and we have to increase that number every year. So by law, we have to continue to move that forward. That's what's called maintenance of effort. That's not something that we get to not do.
Where does the utility increase percentage calculation come from? Is that just what we're used to, and we use that 4% number to?
No, we haven't had utility increase in a while, and, so what I did was looked at what we were hearing with the increase, and then looked at I took our current utility budget as of January 31st, did the 4% on top of that, and looked at what our current budget was, and that's what we would need to get to the budget, for 4% on what we paid in January.
And when you say what you were hearing, that's why I'm curious where it's coming from. Okay.
And will we be able to do this right now, even though we don't have what the state is gonna give us?
Well, we have what the state's telling us they're gonna give us.
It can change.
It can change, up or down. It doesn't typically go down too much with inside the body. So I don't think the House is gonna take us down a lot. It would be if the Senate comes in and says, we know the House said that they're gonna mandate a $1,500 on the teachers and we're gonna give $3,000. Well, if they go give $3,000, then that increases my money in that aid to classroom line item. So then we could come back and say, okay, now they gave us $3,000. Do y'all wanna look at $3,000, $2,000, $2,500? If you look, I wanna show you something really fast. This state aid to the classroom, this is teachers. We got 1.69 million. 1.693 is what it's gonna take to do the same thing that they say they're paying us for.
And still no relief. I keep hearing our governor, everybody's talking about SROs and all that. They still don't pay us for ours because we were first in the state to have SROs everywhere. This is the same bunch. You can't fix a $20 billion pension hole. Well, makes sense.
$1.7 million that we pay in security debt. A lot of school districts around the state get funded 100%. That's what our taxpayers should be upset about.
Yeah, that is. We're innovative in doing this. Even though people throw us under the bus, we've been innovative on this, and we're paying for it out of our own pocket.
Listen, we were the first in the state. We were one of the first in the state. Anderson County was one of the first in the state. This is not just an Anderson 5 issue. Anderson 1 has one SRO paid for, and they pay for the rest. We have one SRO paid for by the state, and we pay for the rest. There are some school districts across the state that every single SRO is paid for by the state.
What
But
if we,
security is important to our
well,
board.
what if you do
because-
this? What if you do away with them? So y'all pay for them now?
And they probably would. Unfortunately, we fill out a letter from the Department of Justice, is that, what is it? State Department, wherever, SLED and Highway Patrol, whatever department they're under at the state, we fill out a report for them every year that says, how many schools do you have that students are in that you don't have an SRO? And the answer for Anderson 5 is 0.
Well, I mentioned to one of our elected officials, I got laughed at.
Mr.
Remember
Newton-
that, folks, when you vote next time.
Mr. Newton has shared this information with multiple people at the state level. We have the information that shows some school districts are getting 20 SROs paid for. And
I'd venture to say we're one of the first in the state to go out with the weapons detection systems.
That's correct.
No funding for
And I
that.
think, they're working on something else at the state level right now that we might have been ahead of the game on, that we're
Yeah.
gonna lose money on yet.
Bathroom bill.
That's fine. They're still working, so I hadn't brought it forward yet. So I appreciate us being forward thinking. I think it's good for our community. I think it's good for our students, and that's why we do what we do. But unfortunately, sometimes it hurts us because we are innovative and try to be on the front lines.
Well, I truly appreciate that comment saying we're forward thinking because it's been going on for years. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hurd.
Yes, we do try to be forward thinking. Those SROs were back after.
Despite
20
what
years.
people say, we are forward
We
thinking.
try. We do really try. And if you talk to anybody around the state, they will tell you that the Anderson, Oconee, Greenville area is very progressive in its education system. There are people that would die to. be in
I
this
read an
system.
article, I know it's getting off topic, but in Post and Courier, a very good article about 90% of the schools nationwide are suffering lower test scores. because of the COVID effect. I mean, it's sad. I mean, and you hate to keep using that, but it's, that article is very enlightening how it's really affected everybody. I think District 2 was one of the few that had seen increase. And they all credited Anderson County for getting their kids back in-person school. I think I saw one of a kid helping him with the math homework fractions that he could do in person instead of through the computer. So.
I'm sorry, give me just 1 second.
I saw 1.2 million for 25 teaching assistants. I mean, where did that come from?
All right, I'm fixing to talk about that, Mr. Rice.
That's my age.
Now, call the phone.
I didn't have teaching assistants when I went to school.
Perfect segue into what we're talking about. So I know that the Finance Committee has brought forth, has talked about teaching assistants, and when we met in that, we looked at about 10 or 15 school districts across the state, mostly in the upstate, and how we compared to them. And we're pretty good on the front end, but again, it's like what we talked about with our principals and a lot of other things. We have 28 steps on our scales, and on some other districts have 10, 12, 13 steps, so they max out quicker, so they can get to a larger number faster. So what we've looked at is, the question came up, what have we done for our teaching assistants? So we looked at the last 4 years. We have given our teaching assistants a 21 to a 36% increase over the last 4 years. During the same time, everybody else has gotten 9%. And we talked about $1, $1.50, $2. I've got all those calculations. That will change the percentage to about 27 to 45% increase over the time frame. So just to show you what that is, this is for a 4-year time frame. I apologize. Your percentage increases are over here on the far right. In 21-22, we only had one category of teaching assistants. Didn't matter if you had a high school diploma, 2-year or 4-year degree, everybody was paid off the same teaching scale. We had that same scale for 21-22, 22-23. I know, Madam Chair, Dr. Kelly worked last year, and we were able, for the 23-24 school year, we got a high school, a 2-year degree, and a 4-year degree. And you can see the changes there, and we have that currently for this year as well. So if you look at the step 1, the current year we're in right now, somebody straight out of high school that goes to be a teaching assistant makes $19,000. In 21-22, that was $15,127. So for a high school degree, that's a 29% increase over the 4 years. If you look at that same thing, if you had a college degree now, and you were a teaching assistant, that would be a 36% increase over 21-22. If you add, and again, I have the cost, if you want to add $1, $1.50, $2, I've done all of the calculations. If you look at that, I'm so sorry, y'all, I should have checked this. If you do that same thing, and you add $1,
So an assistant with a 4-year degree is making $1,000 more than a high school diploma. Wow,
yes, sir.
that's not much money. 4-year degree.
Well, that 4-year degree, you go ahead and get their teaching credentials to teach.
So
If they're
if we
money.
add $1 to it, for the 5-year, the high school diploma change would be 38.87%. If you had a 4-year degree, it would be a 45% increase, going all the way down to the bottom. We've added steps, so if you just truly compare years that we've had the steps, over this 4-year period, it would be 24%, 15, but if you go look at, this is the last year that we actually had every step for the 5 years, and you've been with us for 26 years. So that's the increases. So that is something that we'll have to decide, so we can determine what we want to do with that.
Have we compared ours, have we compared it to other districts in Anderson?
We are about, I can't remember now if we're second or third in starting off, and then we end up about middle of the pack at the end. So we're high in the beginning, we're catching them on the front end, but the longer they stay, some of the other districts go higher than us in the long, with the long haul.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I can share that with you as well, about that. So, I wanted to share that with you, and then I know that we had talked about teaching assistants, and this is the teaching assistants per school, that this is in addition to any kindergarten teacher or any kind of special education teachers, because that will depend on every single school, depending on how many kindergarten teachers Calhoun has versus, Verena, or not Verena, but, Midway or those kind of things. So this is in addition to kindergarten and addition to special ed. Additionally, what I wanna bring to your attention is, as you know, during ESSER, teaching assistants was very important to Dr. Kelly. They pretty much got added under her when she took over, instruction, and then we saw the great growth at Berena's. And so when we had probably 30 teaching assistants through ESSER, but just funding wise, we could not keep all of those. But Dr. Kelly and this board talked last year about the importance of what they were doing in the classroom. So the board kept 17 teaching assistants from ESSER and put them in the general fund in these Title I schools. So this time last year, if you exclude ESSER, every school had whatever they have from title, because that's where they choose their title plan. They can choose to have additional teaching assistants to help with their interventions. But every general fund person had one. We've always had one teaching assistant outside of kindergarten or special ed in every elementary classroom. But due to the work at certain elementary schools that are titled, that we felt like we needed some additional interventions for the schools, and we were seeing the improvements and it working in the schools, we wanted to keep those in there. So, as you will see, Nevitt Forest has 3 general fund. 2 of those used to be paid for by ESSER, and the board this time last year made the commitment to put 2 more in the general fund. Verena's, these 6 used to be in ESSER, and due to the good work, again, just like at Nevitt, I apologize, Dr. Kelly, is Nevitt good? Average, okay. So, we knew the work that they were doing there. Verena's, when we put these in through ESSER, moved up to excellent. Dr. Kelly met with Ms. Barr, had a good plan. The board felt very strongly about them. So 5 of those came from ESSER into the general fund with the last year's budget. And the same thing with Whitehall, was next taken into excellent when we put them in for COVID. So 2 of those. So I just wanted you to know that these are the number of assistants that we currently have in the schools, Title I and general fund, and that the board did make a decision to move 17 into the classroom this time last year. So this is the first year that those have been general fund in the elementary classrooms. So now, just a summary, and again, I apologize, this is not very big. This is a summary of everything that you have seen and heard tonight so far. You'll see that I don't think that we're gonna have health insurance increase, so I think that's gonna stay 0. Retirement, again, I need to confirm that that's not gonna be an increase on employers. Property and workers' comp and casualty insurance, we probably may have some increase in there. Again, we'll typically get that in April, beginning of May. I'll be working with Skizbit to get our numbers. Over here on the other request column, I still need to calculate what a non-teacher step increase would cost if the board chooses to do that. And the principal adjustments we will talk about tonight, and we'll have a number in there. But look, but everything else is accounted for in here except for millage. Again, not a recommendation from Dr. Kelly to increase millage. That'll be a decision of the boards. I know some people feel very strongly about that, so that is not anywhere in these calculations. And right now, prior to some large numbers that need to come in here, we're $335,000 to the good. Now, the non-teacher step last year was about $750,000, so I need to calculate and see what that'll be this year. And then the principal adjustments, we'll see those tonight, so I don't want you to see this number and be like, oh, great, we can go to 2,000 or 2,500, we can calculate whatever you guys want, but we're not there yet to make a decision on, there are still some numbers out there that we need to finalize before we see where we really stand. And then the last thing I have is just to let you know that as always and as promised, as we get more additional information from anywhere, we will share it with you guys. You'll be the first to hear it from us.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank
Thank you, Ms.
Great
Murphy.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now we have, action items. Can we do all of them at one time? We have to do all of them at once. Okay, our action items. Okay, February the 18th, 2025, regular board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agendas for that?
Motion to approve the board meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for February the 18th. Can I show of hands? So we're all in favor of the agenda after we raised our hands, so it's
Yes, ma'am.
approved.
Did we vote on all four at one time, or did we vote? Okay, just one at a time.
One at a time. February 25th, 2025, Finance Committee on Budget Work Session. Well, do I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve that.
Second.
All in favor? Is there any discussion? All in favor? So all of in favor approving of that agenda. Next one is March the 4th, 2025, Finance Committee on Budget Work Session minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
The second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
So that's good. Okay, now we have March the 13th, 2025, Special Board of Trustees meeting, minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Unanimous.
Unanimous?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if I could have a moment of personal preference, please.
yes.
We have just voted on 4 sets of minutes. Each one of those was about at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, some about 4 hours, in the past month alone. It would be my suggestion to Madam Chair, if we dissolved the Finance Committee and we established a committee of a whole that meets at a set time each month. It seems kind of crazy to me personally that we have 9 people attending a committee meeting, or 8, if we can, 8, because of a thirst for knowledge, but only 4 of them can speak. And then we have to have a specially called board meeting so that the others can voice their opinions. A committee of the whole can be speaking about finance. Maybe the next month it's speaking about personnel. Or the next month it's speaking about building and grounds. Or some meetings might be a little bit of all of it. But no votes can be taken in a committee of the whole meeting. It's just where we're getting the same information that we're getting now, and it's taken 3 meetings to get. We could do that in 1 meeting with a committee of the whole. And the chairman does have the authority to set or abolish committees. So I would encourage the chair to abolish the finance committee and reestablish it as a committee of the whole where all of us could speak to the issues. And the information we've gotten has been wonderful. Okay, no doubt about it. I am glad that I came, sat in the audience so that I could hear the information. It's very hard sometimes for me to keep my mouth shut. So in a committee of the whole, we could all speak. We could all have our say. People will know when it's posted and what we're going to talk about, but no votes are taken. It's an informational only meeting, and then we could vote in our regularly scheduled meeting. It's just a reorganization to at least give everybody an equal voice.
Sounds good to me, because I noticed the last time that we did meet, we did have other board members here. And it wasn't a private thing. I mean, you know, you listen to everything that we said. So to me, it would be good for us to either do that on that Wednesday before we meet, that Wednesday, that we could do that, both of those committee meetings before we have the meeting on Tuesday night. That Wednesday that we usually meet on different things, yes.
Should we do a different night than Wednesday?
If you like. What's a good night for you?
Any night other than Wednesday, we'll have church on Wednesday.
Okay, okay, I understand that sound, okay, or Thursday.
Maybe you and the superintendent can get together and set a schedule that's good for y'all, and just inform us, and we'll all have a chance to attend.
Well, I understand about the Wednesday, because we do things too.
Yes, ma'am.
But I was just missing that, but
Madam, I'm sorry.
just go ahead.
Yep, Madam Chair, in regard to the Finance Committee, that was encouraged, I encourage that simply because we're here in the budget season. I know that kicks off in January, generally with the team out here, meeting with principals and other staff. So it's a short-lived, or can be a short-lived committee during the budget season, which is happening right now. Ms. Hurd, I'll ask your timeline for, you have to have your budget ready for the county board by May, end of May.
I will need first reading of the budget by the Anderson 5 Board of Trustees on the May 12th meeting. Again, everybody is fully aware, and we make sure that it's known that it may change depending on additional information that comes. But I will need first reading on the information that we have. That's what we'll calculate the information for the county board on, and we will provide to them by the end of May. And then we'll have our public hearing on the June, I'm not sure if it's June 12th, 13th, but that second Tuesday of that month. We'll have our public hearing then. If additional information is given by then, we will make sure that the public and the board obviously knows the information has changed, make sure that's very clear, and then we'll have the opportunity to actually get second reading at that time.
So
And
basically,
I appreciate your presentation. I mean, it went an hour, or more, but it was thorough, and that's information that we need. That's the kind of thing that would be good to go into detail in a budget finance committee. And as a matter of fact, as you were doing that, that's something I'd like for you to do if we keep a committee from Ms. Hurd to come back and go into details on these items. So I would encourage keeping that, because it's going to be short-lived. What's the?
4 meetings a month, not short-lived.
yeah,
Well,
and
but
we
this
do
is
work
critical.
on.
This
we
is,
do-
I mean, this is important.
It is important, and we work on the budget 6 months out of the year from January to June. So, you know, it's not a short-lived thing. And then there are other things that come up, policies that come up that need to be discussed. Because, you know, one of our standing committees used to be policy committees. One of our standing committees used to be building and grounds, where we discuss that. But as a committee of the whole, we can all meet together at one time instead of this, 4 people sitting up here and 5 people sitting out there and not being able to speak. We can all sit together and discuss it. And I think it will just expedite everything that we're doing and maybe shorten some of the called meetings we're having to have.
And we have had these committee of the whole in the past, so the
Yes.
board needs to understand that's becomes a standing meeting
Yeah.
It
once
does.
a month, yeah.
Mhm.
We used to always do it on Thursday before the board meeting on Tuesday.
Could we still do that now?
It's up to you.
Up to you.
You
Okay,
totally
yeah, I would
control
rather do that then, and we could still have that meeting and still have the meeting for the agenda for what we're gonna do that Tuesday night. You
Yes,
think?
sir. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I appreciate Mr. Bradshaw's comments, and I'm totally open to everybody being able to be involved and speak. I definitely understand not wanting to have so many meetings and trying to consolidate it. I'm not sure that not having these several meetings was preventable in this case. There's a regular board meeting here, and then there's 2 finance committee meetings, and the point of the special meeting was obviously so that if we wanted to take some action, we could, because the finance committee cannot take that action. And then the only thing I'll say about your suggestion is let's just make sure we look at the policy and see if something needs to be adjusted, because on quick glance, I know committee of the whole's been done in the past.
It has.
On quick glance, I don't see that in the policy, so I just want us to review it before we commit to something.
I
Let's just
understand.
get through.
I think what you're gonna find is that the chairman has full, control
yeah.
over appointing of committees, even ad hoc committees, so,
Well, let's just review it.
of course. So, Madam Chair, we'll leave it up to you as a recommendation.
Okay. And then I can let you
Yeah,
all
Yes,
know.
ma'am.
yeah,
Yeah.
talk
Yes,
with
ma'am.
superintendent and get it out to us.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, now we're down to policies. Okay, we have the policy JFABD, admission of homeless students. This is our second reading of this. Do I have a motion to approve?
Who's got that policy?
That-
Kelly?
Yes, I'll be glad to speak of that. JFBD, admission of homeless students, we did bring this forth last month at a regular board meeting. All we did with this policy was add language from the federal and state to be in compliance for our homeless students and our unaccompanied youth. There were no revisions or changes spoken of from any of the board members, so nothing has changed since that first reading. So it is our recommendation to approve this policy on second reading.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve policy JFABD, admission of homeless students.
Is there a-
Second reading, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Could I ask if something could be added? to
Yeah.
that policy? Under where it says the students obtain immunizations, and it's up to the parent legal guardian liaison to help obtaining the immunizations, could we add or exemption?
Well, I don't think you can exempt them, that, because all babies
That's
have to
addressed
have
in
shots.
there.
Well, it's allowed to get a religious exemption for your own children, so this is homeless children. So I would think they would be able to get the exemption as well.
What page is that?
It's in the administrative
Really?
Rule?
It's in the
22.
I got you,
administrative
I
rule.
got you.
Page 22.
Mine's not numbered.
I think that's addressed in our regular policy, the exemptions for any student.
But this immunization for children, that has nothing, I thought you had to be the children had to be measles, all that. I thought you had to have that.
You can get a religious or medical exemption.
Where, Ms. Burris, where exactly are you in that?
Where it says assignment to school, it's on that page.
It's in the administrative rule for policy JFABD, so it's not in the
Okay.
policy, but it's in the administrative rule.
It's under
Yes,
the
on the
heading
second page.
enrollment.
Yes.
Enrollment.
Okay, yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah, I would say, along with Ms. Burris, we just want to make sure that whatever's allowable by law, that we're in compliance with the law, which I think the law allows exemptions in certain cases. So we want to make sure that we're, if that's available, we want to make sure that, we're putting that, so that our policies are in line with state law, not just sort of shooting from the hip.
And you said
Yeah, we
certain
have to
cases
address
is
in our
what?
student handbook.
Yes, we already have a policy addressing the.
We've already got that policy, so what are we gonna put it in again for?
I was just asking.
I mean, that's a waste of time.
Well, this is a rule.
Well, that's your
Which is
opinion,
how
Mr.
we'll
Price.
follow it, so I would agree.
You would agree to what?
I would agree that it needs to be in there.
Point of
And
order.
to require
We have a
The-
point of order.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
The,
If we have a blanket policy that covers all of our student body, I see it redundant for us to go back and add a specific policy for a subtitle policy that falls under our blanket policy.
Point of order, Madam Chair. A point of order is to be used to make sure that someone's in compliance with the rules, not a excuse to interrupt them and say that this is, we certainly want your opinion, Mr. Kay, but it's not really an open way to just sort of interrupt or present your opinion. It's, if somebody's not following the rules of the meeting, then that would be the intent of a point of order. Is that correct?
Point of privilege, Madam Chair. In an effort to correct my fine colleague, I would like to say that a point of order can be used if we are not in compliance with the flow of the meeting. I can call for a point of order, or I can call for a point of privilege. At this point, I'm calling for a point of privilege to you, Madam Chair, that we move forward on my point of order that was presented prior to his interruption. We cannot move forward on his comment until we have finalized my point of order. Now, in also correcting my fine colleague, if you'd like me to share Robert's Rules of Order with you, I will. However, this is not the time for that. So if you have a problem with my point of order, then kindly address me later. But we're trying to address business before this body so that our constituents can see that we can move forward in a timely fashion. Madam Chair, as I stated before, point of order, we're going to ask that we do not look back at being redundant in adding verbiage that is already covered under a blanket policy.
And that's the policy that you were talking about.
So, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we move forward in approving the second reading of this particular policy regarding our homeless students, being that we have a policy that already covers immunizations under our blanket policy in the student handbook.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I think we already have a motion on the floor. It has been made and seconded, so we should,
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
he is offering a substitute motion.
Correct.
Okay,
So we have to deal with his substitute, then ours.
okay. So we dealt with that.
Mr. Kay, do you mind repeating your substitute motion?
I don't. I'm making a substitute motion because we had gotten to the point of voting when there was a question about discussion regarding revision of the policy JFABD regarding homeless students and their immunizations. However, it's brought to our attention that we already have that as a blanket policy. So my substitute motion is that we move forward and approve this on second reading without any additional verbiage that would be redundant in reiterating something that is covered under our blanket policy.
Okay, all in favor of approving this second reading of JFABD, show of hands. So we got, all others opposed? Two opposed.
I'm abstaining.
Yeah, abstain.
Two abstained. Okay.
Now, if I may, that disposes, am I correct, that disposes of JFABD, correct? Okay, I'd like to talk about the rule, which doesn't require a vote, and ask that the administration add Ms. Burris's piece there in regard to having, given options for parents to be able to opt out for those vaccinations,
So you're saying parent now, so it's not homeless child now?
or the homeless child. Or just put that into the rule,
Under enrollment.
under enrollment, yes. And that requires no vote.
Okay.
But it does require the superintendent's approval.
That's correct.
Okay, policy EEA, student transportation, second reading.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. This again is second reading, as you stated. We have just added language again that would help us to be in compliance with federal and state law for our homeless students and unaccompanied youth. There were no revisions or changes suggested by any board of trustees from our last meeting, so nothing has changed since you all reviewed it last month.
Do I have a motion to approve the policy of EEA, student transportation?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve policy EEA, student transportation, second reading.
So moved.
It has been moved and second. They're all in favor? Any opposed? Any opposed? So motion passes. Policy DIG, undersigned fund balance, first reading. I didn't understand that when I was reading it.
That's undesignated.
That's designated.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. This policy was presented at one of our finance committee meetings for discussion. It talks about how the Government Finance Officers Association recommends 16.6% of the annual general fund budget being undesignated, and it should not go lower than that. Ms. Hurd did an excellent job approaching the committee and talking about how she wanted to increase and demonstrate her fiscal responsibility and wanting to raise that limit to 20%. And so that is what's been revised and presented before you today.
Okay, that's what, I was thinking about that, but I still keep going back in my mind that the state hadn't told us what we're gonna do, so we still can go on with what percentage that we say that we're gonna do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ms. Hurd, is there anything else that you'd like to add to?
Okay, we have a motion for policy DIG, undersigned fund balance, first reading. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion, we accept policy DIG under undesignated fund balance, first reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for this, so all in favor of?
I got some discussion, if I
Discussion.
may, Madam Chair. I just wanted to see what suddenly had changed with the district that would make us go from 16 to 20%. I know I asked for some revision history on this policy. I think this policy was initially put in 2009 and then revised in 2016. So I think in 2009, we said we had a fund balance target, or we wanted to keep between 8 and 16% approximately in our undesignated fund balance. And then in 2016, we eliminated the 8% floor and made approximately 16% the least we want to keep in this undesignated fund balance. So I'm just sort of curious what has changed such that we would want to increase this from 16 to 20%. The way I see it is when we increase this undesignated fund balance, we're sort of taking money off the table in that we're setting money to the side that really we do have access to in an emergency, but we don't have the access to it as a means of normal doing business. It's just sort of I don't want to call it a savings account. It's not that. It's just setting money to the side as a way to, I think as the policy says, demonstrates fiscal responsibility, provides adequate working capital, allows the district to meet unforeseen contingencies such as unfunded state and federal mandates and things like that. But to me, it's sort of one of these things where it could be an indication if we're flush with cash such that we're able to raise this target that the argument could be made you're overtaxing. So I would say keep this at 16%, and that's sort of my discussion on it. I'd like to have, if anybody else has got any.
Well, my point on this is like retained earnings for a business. We have no control over our revenue stream. That can be cut at any time. Several of us have been here when we couldn't even get 10% of fund balance, and we're sitting here cutting to the bone. I think we're doing the taxpayers justice by being well prepared for whatever is dealt with us, since we have no control over our revenue stream ever.
And that law was, that policy was revised in 2016, like you said. But since 2016, even at a 2% 2% rate of inflation, 10 years, we're talking 20% more in inflation. So just the cost of doing business, the cost of salaries, the cost of everything has continued to rise over the past 10 years. And our rainy day fund, the money that's set aside for those really tough, catastrophic times, has not risen to meet inflation over time. So the 4% seems a small amount as compared to the 20% inflation that we've had over the past 10 years.
And Ms. Hurd, our current fund balance, if we had to go to it to make payroll, would last about how long?
Just a little bit of history. We did not have a fund balance policy in 2009. And we had just passed a bond referendum in 2007, and we had gone to borrow some money in 2008. One of the investing companies asked us, do you have a fund balance policy? And this board did not have a fund balance policy. So that is when we brought the 2009 policy for the board to approve, based on the information at that time. That was, as Mr. Price is saying, that was during the time frame that we had about 8%, and we let a lot of people go because
Yes,
we
you
could
did.
not meet our payroll for even 4 months. So we did the best we could do. We put some extra language in that original policy just to protect the district and the taxpayers to not ever get below an 8% thing. The reason it was changed in 2016 was based on the recommendation of our auditors. That language that's in the current policy is no less than 2 months, which is about 16.67%. That is a minimum based on the Government Finance Officers Association designation that our auditors asked the board to put. That was the reason for the change. I brought it forward in our Finance Committee meeting. There is no board that is pushing us to do this. It is not an auditor recommendation. Unfortunately, I guess I had a differing opinion than Mr. Thompson. I felt like it would show that the board was trying to be prepared in case something happened, instead of us just having the bare minimum of the 16.67 to say in good faith we have. It takes about 8.3% of our fund balance each month to pay payroll. And fund balance is a 1-day snapshot in time. So it's a number on June 30th and it's very different on July 1st. So that is, it's an accounting number, but it's obviously the pleasure of the board on that. But this is not coming from a regulation agency. The regulation agency has got the one that we have now, a minimum of two months, which is no less than 16.67. And we were just trying to slightly go above that to show fiscal responsibility.
Thank you, Ms. Hurd.
Ms. Hurd, go ahead.
Would we have to raise taxes to do that?
No, sir. We are above that now. All this is saying is that we're not gonna dip into fund balance. I think the board has the authority at any time to revise any of their policies. So if you ever need to if we ever need to decrease it for some reason, a major catastrophe, and we only have 22%, and we need to take out money from our fund balance and get down to 19%, I think the board can suspend this policy to get down to 19%. What I was trying to do was trying to say that we would set a minimum that we have available, that we wouldn't spend below that in case we ever needed it. It would never, ever be my recommendation or Dr. Kelly's recommendation to raise millage to build a fund balance. That's not the recommendation.
But if you didn't have the fund balance, you might have to raise the
If you
millage.
don't have the fund balance,
You're gonna raise,
then,
so that's what it protects us from, Mr. Hager. If we have a fund balance, it can protect us from raising taxes.
or we're gonna have to let employees go through a.
I'm just being honest. The new board members that come on when the district is flush with cash. Trust me, y'all don't know what a gold mine you're sitting on. And it's great we have this breathing room. But
Yeah.
us three here been here when it was not here.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't pay, if Tripp was on Terry, we couldn't pay him a full salary
Right.
for the job he was doing.
Yeah, you let me
And
know.
that, yeah, and that, yeah. I told him to keep you. But I mean, and that's what, if we've been through that, I understand, we don't ever want to go through that again. I mean,
Right.
it blindsided everybody, I think, but, and
and
I understand what you're saying, trust me. But I just think long-term, it's been very fiscally responsible for the taxpayers to make sure we don't have to go to them for money because we didn't prepare.
We would never ask, we would never try to build a savings account on the backs of our taxpayers. That would never be the recommendation of Dr. Kelly or this board or me from my professional opinion.
And I hope goodness we never go back to that again. I mean, it was, whew.
And I do
Yes, sir.
want to add one thing that I know our auditors mentioned, complimented on our fund balance as it looks good.
For bond rating.
That's right, for bond rating. So it is good to have a healthy fund balance. And
So-
believe me, we don't ever want to go through 08 again.
So, Ms. Hurd, am I correct in my simplistic view of adding to the fund balance at the end of the year, whatever money we have left over in the general fund, we would put into fund balance, is that correct? Okay.
Another
So-
argument.
Unless the board chooses to move to capital projects
Yeah.
or something
Right.
else.
So,
But
Mr.
yes, sir, you're.
Okay. So, Mr. Thompson's comment on, if we have money left over, then we may be taxing a little bit too much, but we've been very fiscally responsible during the year. Okay, so that's
And I
where our money,
appreciate-
that's where that money comes from.
I appreciate the recommendation. I've tried hard to understand it and make sure we do this right. And as far as a business model, we have a unique one because we don't have to have customers come in. We just have the ability to tax. So it's hard to really compare this to the private sector. It certainly isn't. And one, on the discussion of taxes, it could be said that if we're taking money off the table, which in my calculation, I may be wrong here, is at 16% fund balance is about $25 million. 20% is about $31 million. So you're taking $6 million off the table, really, that we're setting aside in this account that we really can't touch. You could argue that we say, well, we got to go to the taxpayers to cover this budget deficit because we can't touch this undesignated fund balance. So that would be a different way of thinking on how it could affect taxation. And I haven't seen any other district in Anderson County with a policy DIG or similar. It may exist. And I've also looked at 4 other districts of similar size. 2 of them, I can't access their policies online. The other 2 have no such policy that I've seen. So there's that.
Well, no offense, but I'm not worried about any other districts other than Anderson 5. I think we need to
I
be
take no
fiscally
offense to
responsible and, like I said, if you've been through it, you would understand. I mean,
Yeah.
trust us.
I'm trying hard to understand, I promise you.
When you're letting people go, you'll understand.
Okay.
Time to vote. Time to vote. Yep.
Time to vote.
Okay, do I go back to,
I had made a
Call
motion.
motion.
Call for vote.
for a vote.
just call for a vote?
Yeah, there's a motion
Okay,
and a
is
second.
there, will we have a vote, you got that, favor of this policy?
All in favor?
Okay.
That's,
Opposed.
Opposed?
Yes,
One
ma'am.
opposed?
I'm opposed.
that's
Okay.
opposed.
One opposed. Okay, next thing on our agenda is the 2025 school calendar revision.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, as you know, we had 8 days this school year where we either had to conduct e-learning or close schools due to Hurricane Helene or snowstorms. And we were in hopes that legislators were going to be able to forgive some of those Hurricane Helene days as we were out 6 days total. As of today, we have not heard of any forgiveness yet, so we need to move forward with making up those days. Currently, the makeup days are after Memorial Day, and that would cause our children and our teachers to come back. Right now, our school calendar is supposed to end on May 22nd, but that would cause our families to readjust all of their summer plans, summer camps, that sort of thing for our teachers as well, to be able to come back after Memorial Day. So what I'm proposing to you is a new way for us to make up those days. And so we did e-learning. We were out 6 days for Hurricane Helene. 2 of those, September 27th and September 30th, we did e-learning, so we don't have to make up those days. October 1st, we closed. Remember, we closed, and we closed completely because so many people were affected with not having power. We even opened up AIT and several other stations for folks to come and charge their phones and computers and things like that. We delivered meals. Remember, we delivered breakfast and lunches because it truly was a devastating time for our community. So our schools were closed. So we need to make up 4 days. We need to make up 4 days because our schools were closed 4 days. Per South Carolina Code 59-1-425, if we make up 3 of those days, the board can forgive that 4th day. So what I'm trying to propose tonight is that we make up the first day, so we would make up October 1st on April 18th as an e-learning day. Right now, that is a day that is scheduled off for students and teachers, but it would just be an e-learning day. So that would be an e-learning day. And then to make up October 2nd and 3rd, the state has allowed us on May 21st and May 22nd, those are scheduled right now for half days or early release days. The state has said if we will make both of those up full days, that will count as a day. So the proposal is to take May 21st, May 22nd, and instead of those being half days, those would be full days. So April 18th e-learning day would be 1 day made up. Making May 21st and May 22nd full days would be the 2nd day made up. And then for the 3rd inclement weather day where the school was closed, we would ask the children to come on Friday, May 23rd, for a half day, early release day. And that would make up the 3 days of 4 of the school closures. That last school closure day, which is October 4th, because if you approve that plan for us to make those 3 up, you all have the opportunity to waive that 4th closure day. And so that is our recommendation to the board tonight so that our families and our students and our teachers do not have to come back after Memorial Day.
Can we add to the motion now that at the conclusion of those makeup days, we waive the 4th so that we already have it done and we won't have to have a specially called meeting to forgive 1 day?
Yep, that's fine, we definitely can do that.
I don't see why we can't do that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard, our superintendent asked us to,
Excuse me, did I not see from SCSBA today where there's still something presented to forgive these days?
There are. When I was speaking with Blake Sanders on Friday,
Yeah.
we were talking about that, and he had said the same thing. It's still in conversation, but I would hate to wait. I would like for us to go ahead and approve, and if they do make
Okay.
that legislation truly come to fruition, then of course we would not go to this schedule.
Okay. I thought I saw it and I thought it was a dead deal.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
okay, so you see the schedule that we're having now to revise those days that we've already missed or put in. For the 18th would be an e-learning day, that's Good Friday, and May 21st, 22nd would be 2 full days, and then the 23rd would be a half day. And then we would forgive the October the 4th day for inclement weather. And we were out. Do I have a,
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we make up the inclement weather days by making April 18th an e-learning day, making May the 21st and 22nd 2 full days, and lastly, making the 23rd of May a half day, and additionally, to waive the day that the school was missed on October the 4th due to the Hurricane Helene.
So move.
Do I have a second?
So move.
So it's been moved.
One question if we're in the discussion. Is graduation not May 22nd?
It is, yes, sir. So we will continue with the same schedule that we have. I believe, I think T.O. Hannah's at 10 o'clock, and I think Westside High School is at 2 o'clock.
I've had a couple of questions on that. I don't know, because I'm new to how that might affect it. I just wanted to raise that.
Well,
issue
we'll
and
work
confirm
with,
that
we've
was-
always worked with our employees if they have relatives or close friends that they want to go and celebrate with them on that great accomplishment. We've always worked with our
Okay.
employees, so we'll be glad to do that as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Okay, so we are going to accept this as our makeup days for 2025.
You need to vote, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
all in favor?
It's
Good.
unanimous.
Thank you, it's unanimous. Thank you, I forget we have to
Thank you. I
vote.
appreciate that.
Okay. Southwood improvements.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm gonna ask Mr. Grant if he'll come forward. This is a follow-up conversation from, our last meeting about the improvements that we wanted to show you all and then recommend for you all to look at for Southwood. So I'll let Mr. Grant take over for that.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Madam Chair, members of the board, it's great to be with you tonight.
Yeah, glad to have you.
We, as Dr. Kelly mentioned a couple months ago, we introduced the topic of improving the restrooms at Southwood Academy of the Arts. The need is there, we've identified that. We now have some final numbers to present you for consideration. Just to recap the scope, you'll see on the screen, we've got existing restrooms that we'd like to renovate on both levels, and we've got new restrooms we'd like to construct on both levels. It is a complicated project. It's internal to the school, while school's being occupied, so that complicates things a bit. Obviously, safety is very important that we're all focused on here, but it does complicate the project. This, when I share the cost with you, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to see the project schedule as well, there's a lot of elements to this that has to be done. They basically got to reinforce the flooring, and create the steel structure underneath to support the walls that they're going to need to construct to support the rest of it. And I'll share that with you. Assuming you guys approve tonight, the contractor's prepared to start work immediately, and they'll continue to work through the summer and into October. Mr. Dukes, you asked the question, are we gonna finish this summer? We had hoped to. Thompson Turner had lengthy conversations with me. They're just unable to have all this work done by the end of the summer. So what they've assured me is they're gonna work second shifts during the school year, at the end of the year, and also at the beginning of the year when school starts back. Anything disrupted, they're gonna do all those activities after school hours. So I thought that was encouraging. I did verify that we've had ample competition in the bidding process. Ms. Brooks, I know you asked about that occasionally. I did verify that we've had ample competition. So at this time, I would just ask the board if it's your pleasure to proceed, just approve amendment number 14 to the contract with Thompson Turner to improve the restroom facilities in the amount of $2,682,937.
Madam Chair, may I ask a clarifying question? I noticed on one of the, no, it's not a check, where's a list of projects, let's see what they're calling that, an amendment to the GMP. It says this is phase 1 restroom renovations. What's that phase 1?
But that's just a phase, there's only one phase. So
Okay.
Mr. Grant, is there a reason that we use the tile with the grout as opposed to just the regular cement in those restrooms? Is there a safety reason?
We're going back with an epoxy.
Thank you, sir. That was my question. I appreciate that.
Is there any sort of itemized list as like the cost of labor and the cost of materials. And I was looking back over my personal budget. I've never approved $2 million anything in my, so it's a lot of money for bathrooms is my concern. I'd just like to see something if there's anything that exists at this point.
They share with me, when I ask for the competition, they'll share with me the cost breakdown of the trade. For instance, they'll give me the cost breakdown, I'll just read it to you. Air monitoring, selective demolition, concrete patching, masonry, steel, waterproofing, roofing, doors, frames, hardware, drywall, framing, ceilings, flooring, epoxy flooring, painting, specialties, signage, plumbing, HVAC, and the like.
I can sum it up. The subs are not gonna break out materials and labor separate. They're giving a bid on the project, so they don't break up materials and labor when they bid these things.
The numbers that Thompson Turner received, to Mr. Price's point, is they have a number for electric. They have a number for plumbing. All those trades that the subs do.
And these are guaranteed maximums, is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
So the total cost can't exceed unless we change it in some form or fashion.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And there was a change some years ago about through the bidding processes, there was a new method. And I cannot recall, I cannot recall. Yes,
CM at
yes.
risk.
Can you give us a brief explanation on that?
And that's what we're doing now. In years past, you had design bid build, that's what we did. The problem with that approach is many times the contractor would low bid the project knowing there's gonna be future change orders that they can see in the design plan, and you would end up paying more for change orders. And it gets very confrontational. We end up in lawsuits with companies, as you guys have seen in recent days. The only lawsuit we've had from a construction standpoint was related to the design bid build. The CM at risk method gives us an opportunity to partner with the contractor, the architect. We're all sitting at the table and having discussions during the design phase. And the contractor is able to bring forth knowledge and ask questions to the architect to avoid those change orders in the future. And also make recommendations on ways to save money in the building process. And we've seen that happen. The architect may think we should do it this way, and then Thompson Turner will have an idea because they're in the field each day, and they think they could do it in a more effective, cost-effective way. The CM at risk method, the contractor takes on the risk to the guaranteed maximum price, and then gives us a number not to exceed that.
And when you have the low bid process, they're using every low sub they get because they've got to get the job, and you get what you pay for. I mean, we've had buildings that weren't delivered, and there was no hurry. I think Centerville was one years ago. I mean, West Market, and it's never done on time. I think a perfect example of this was with Thompson Turner, and if anybody's not familiar with construction, I'm very familiar with it. And when the ceiling collapsed at West Side, if that'd been a low bid process, I venture to say we'd be still sitting here waiting on litigation with nothing done. They just, so the engineers say go, let the lawyers and insurance companies sell it and moved on. And we got that delivered just a couple months past due, which was phenomenal.
The department made a decision to float over $1 million.
Yeah.
Because that project way more than changed. That was a risk on their part that they were willing to take.
The old saying in construction law, whoever has the best attorneys wins. So, and that's the way they look at life.
Well, maybe one of the board members that's been around can enlighten me, but since we're in this contract with the, I think maybe we've been in a 5-year contract with this general contractor, or maybe there's 2 or 3 years left.
December of 26.
Right. How do we, in this day and age, when something like this comes before me, how do I make sure I'm being fiscally responsible? Because it seems like we're under contract, they're just sort of writing their own check.
Well,
So how do we
I'll sum it
go
up
about
this way, Mr. Thompson. If you'll go back and look at the low bid process from the 2006 bond referendum, we got crappy work, let's put it bluntly. Now we're paying for that down the road. Back then, it looked like they were getting a great deal. I was part of some of those things, and it was done dirt cheap. So, you get what you pay for. So back then, the taxpayers thought they were getting a good deal. Now we realize they didn't. And we've been in litigation that was just settled in the last year of a roof leaking, I think. Yeah, so it took that
Thompson,
long to settle
I
that.
can give you another example. When we put a new roof on Whitehall Elementary School, we used an old set of plans undoubtedly, and we calculated the number of feet that it would take to cover the roof by some huge amount. The change order was over $300,000, which was just unbelievable for that roof. But we had to pay it.
Yeah. And it's a very valid question you asked, Mr. Thompson. I just know
Well,
that,
the
very valid,
question
but
was, how
they
do
do
you-
look for change. They go into this looking for change orders. That's why they go in when it's low bid process. They're gonna get it one way or the other, and they've got you over barrel because you're trying to get done, and they come up with those extra things, and Paul could allude to that
Paul's our
better anyway.
architect.
What I'd like to make a recommendation to the board is if we get Thompson and Turner in here to explain the CM at risk process to some of the new board members, just so that there's an
Yeah.
understanding. And it would help y'all understand. The buzzword years ago was design build, now it's CM at risk. Design bid build is just about out the window. I don't know, there's very, very, very few developers, owners, even government agencies have gone to CM at risk and have gone away from design bid build. For example, when we bid Glenview and Robert Anderson, one contractor got Glenview, another contractor got Robert Anderson. Glenview was finished in time, under budget, and it was a design build contractor, but they elected to do the bid. I think they bid the job to get the work, because when we were building those schools, the economy had tanked. The plumber that won the bid at Robert Anderson left the job, walked away from the job, because he didn't have enough money in it. The painter walked off the job. And so, I don't remember exactly what ended up having to happen, but it was less than desirable for the district to have that to happen.
Right.
Again, they were just trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm
North-
not,
North-
again, I'm not, I've heard great things about
Yeah,
Thompson Turner.
yeah.
It's not, the question was, though, originally was, how do I as a board member or us as a board, if we're in this sort of contract, in what way do we go about making sure that, kinda like you said, we're kind of over a barrel?
Yeah.
But I mean, in what ways have you found are good ways to be fiscally responsible? 2.6 million on a bathroom, I don't doubt that, that's the quality, that's not, or the timeliness, that's not my concern. It's being fiscally responsible and raising the question that's a lot of dough.
I agree. It's more than I anticipated. And I think we talked about it at the last board meeting. It was somewhere, I think you gave us a $1.62 million, and here it is at 2.6. Until you price something, you don't know what it is, and it's hard to give a, but I totally agree. There has to be some checks and balances, and our contract with them is a fee based on construction cost. And so they go out and get prices from subs to do the work, and then they add their fee on top of that.
I understand.
Can I bring this back to the kids? We have students at Southwood that wait in line to use the restrooms.
How long has that been going on?
Accidents have happened, at kids waiting a little too long before asking the teacher and getting to a full restroom. I think, and we've always known that there was a bathroom shortage. We've known that ever since we converted the school to an arts academy. I think, the first thing we have to look at is we need to do this for the kids there.
Yeah. I definitely
And I
agree
think
with that.
that's my number one priority.
And I'll add this, I think anytime it's an occupied building, it is a lot more challenging to do the work, but still, the pressure's there to be done on time.
Yeah.
And I think with both the projects we're looking at tonight, we're trying to get them ready and not disrupt the flow of school. And that is gonna cost you a little more, unfortunately.
Last question, how long have we had bathroom issues, Southwood? How long has this been issued? They've been waiting in line for,
No changes, and we continue to increase our numbers there. You know, as we continue to increase numbers at Southwood, which is our goal, to get more people in each grade, the problems will get worse. When they're full now, it's only gonna get worse.
Do you know how many fixtures there are existing compared to what we're providing?
If it's, I don't have those numbers there
Okay,
to
that's
share with you, but we can get them from the image here, I think. These are existing, the ones that's renovated, and then you can look at the,
Those look like
you can
renovated.
look at the existing completions. There's the existing.
Okay.
We're basically doubling the number of restrooms.
And
17.
we're making them 88, that's the way that's missing that school.
Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for the Southwood project. Help me, Wes, at a total of 2.6,
$2,682,147.
to be paid out of capital improvements.
Second.
Yeah, I made the motion.
You made, you second?
Harold said.
Okay. Still any discussion, any more discussion? Let's vote.
I'm abstaining.
Just one abstain. Okay, the next one is local, board approved, Whitehall improvement.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I'm gonna ask Mr. Green if he'll lead us through that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, Madam Chair. Similar to the last project, we shared the idea with you guys in January about improving the car run stacking challenge that we're having at Whitehall Elementary School. If you've been there at arrival and dismissal, you'll see cars stacking up on the Whitehall Road. So clearly the need's there. Since January, we've worked with the architect, we've worked with Thompson Turner, to create a scenario where it gives us ample room to stack all the car riders. We've counted the car riders, we've added ample space for this. So this will allow us to stack all the way around the property using our existing property. We're gonna relocate the parking lot to give the staff there an opportunity. The way it's structured now and built now is if staff member needs to leave for some reason early, before dismissal is totally finished, they really have no way to move the vehicle out. It creates a challenge. Relocating this parking lot was gonna be necessary anyway, and it also gives us an opportunity to treat that. We will extend the canopy, to allow for more canopy room to be dropped off, but it'll be lit, the parking lot will be lit. The idea is if you guys approve tonight, the contractor will start near spring break, they'll start mobilizing, and plan to be finished mid-July. The only exception to that would be the canopy. There's a long lead time for the materials for the canopy, and the contractor shares with me that element of the project would not be in sight until installed.
Is there curbing involved in the extension? It's not just asphalt, it's asphalt with cement.
Yes, sir. You have covered that.
Curbing.
you know, we could rent out spots for camping during Rock the Country. I bet we could recoup some of our money on this thing.
Mr. Grant, where's the canopy? The canopy you speak of, is that for where the existing one is? It's gonna be
It
redone?
will extend to the existing, it'll just move closer to the new parking lot.
Okay.
Kind of like at McCants, how they have that one where the kids can stand under it in the rain and go to the cars. Same way at Midway where they have the canopy going down and
Okay,
the.
not a drive-through canopy. I
Yeah.
got you.
It just gives the parents an opportunity to stack them along the line with the canopy. Good question.
Tripp, you've been there before. What do you,
That school's dear to my heart. My only concern is you're losing a good bit of space, playground space and all that, because we've added some wings there, and that has eaten up some of that. But the kids will make do. They'll find a place to play.
I think this will help the park.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. We got to get, we
Yeah.
got to get those people off of
Okay,
Whitehall. That
okay.
is, I mean.
I think that's been our
The
concern.
flashing lights, I mean, it's just too dangerous.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm assuming they looked at detention, and we're not required to add any detention,
There
or?
are, it's to the, it's not shown here, but
Okay.
it's to the left.
Okay.
And similar to the last project, I did ask Thompson Turner, it is my interest to make sure as best I can to see that we're getting competitive prices from them. I always ask for what we call their good faith and effort report, just to make sure we have good competition of people submitting bids to me. And they shared that with me, and I always like to see that. It was competitive bidding, just like on the last project, so I know I was able to check that box. The amount of the project, if the board approves tonight, we would be asking to approve amendment number 13 in the amount of $1,247,811. $1,247,811.
Well, you know, on the backside of that, and I heard you say about building on, I didn't know you had built something out there. But isn't it a track, a walking track? Is that our walking track?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It actually, it extends around this area I'm circling with the mouse, if you can see that, Ms. Glover.
Uh-huh.
So the contractor's is gonna create this walking path here to basically recreate that. And what
Okay.
that will also do is give staff members the opportunity to move to this walking path and move closer to them. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Is there fencing on the back side? Did y'all say that before?
There's fencing there now.
Okay, you heard about Whitehall improvement.
Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Whitehall vehicle stacking improvement at the tune of $1.247811 million.
I'll second.
Second, let's vote.
Unanimous?
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.
Now we have local board approved courses.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. We are presenting the local board approved courses that we are utilizing in our schools. They are presented to you annually for approval, and there were a few questions that they wanted a little clarification about the adaptive PE and adaptive art courses, and also the honors criteria for those courses. So I've had Mary Nell Anthony, who's our Executive Director of Secondary Instruction. She's coming tonight just to provide a little bit of information about that and to explain our courses to you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Kelly, and the rest of the board. Thanks for having me. I know that I hopefully need that 3 minutes. I know it's a long night, but I did, I'm keeping it short and sweet just to give you some highlights, because these courses, y'all do want more clarification on, but they are truly unique and very special to our district. And so adaptive PE in general, just so you know, those are PE courses for our special needs students who are self-contained, who need a lot more support in the classroom. And so the mentoring course is a special opportunity for our students to assist with the adaptive PE students. And so they join together in order to gain skills on the part of the general ed student. They're able to gain skills for any future career they're going to work in that might deal with accommodating special needs students, whether it is a future special ed teacher or just any other career that they might have. Now, these students are in grades 10 through 12. They have to have a C average in their 4 classes, and they also have to have 2 teacher recommendations. But some of the things that they do, you can see here, they help the PE teachers set up the courses when they play games, when they prepare for Special Olympics. They go out and they buddy up and they help play, prepare, break down equipment, set up equipment, and take part. It's really just such a win-win. The added benefits, really the student relationships that are created. They get really close to each other, and those relationships can end up extending beyond the school day, where they become friends outside of school as well. We have the adaptive art class as well. It's a little harder to get photos for that one, but this is a special mentoring class that A5 was very progressive in establishing years ago. So the related arts honors courses, also, you know, with any honors course, you're going to have additional rigor just in terms of the analysis that's required, in terms of the level of depth and the level of the talent that's needed in order to even achieve at that level. That's going to be up in all of those courses. But in addition, for each course, you know, honors isn't more work, it's better work, but these students do have more work. And so they have to present a portfolio and a written artist statement defending their pieces in the art classes, and participate in an art show. They have to participate in music classes. They have to do ensemble events, audition for all county or region orchestra. They have to take 2 events to solo ensemble. In music production, they're having to create a final music production piece. They have to create in the dance classes original choreography. They then have to have multiple dance styles in that. They have to have costuming, lighting choices. All of that is done by the students. And in theater, they actually have to do a student-led production where they do the script, the casting, the directing, the whole shebang. And so they really are not only analyzing and using their talent at a level of depth and rigor that's higher than a regular class, but they are also having those additional requirements. So, do y'all have any questions about any of those?
Thank you. Your description of the adaptive, the win-win that's a great thing.
Thank you.
Did she finish her?
So, Madam Chair, we're just recommending board approval of these local board courses.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve these local courses.
I second.
It's been motioned and a second that we approve those, local board approved courses, and, we gotta do text. Okay, by show of hands, unanimous. Thank you. Textbook adoptions.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. We are presenting before you, you'll see in your packet, mathematic instructional materials for kindergarten all the way through high school courses. This curricula was vetted by the state, so these were given to us by the state. The teachers reviewed several curricula that was provided. They had rubrics, they looked at it, was it standards-based, did it support their instruction, were there things there to help support students that needed to have expansion or interventions. They also, each teacher voted. So every teacher had a vote, and then those votes were captured in a Google form. And from that, these are the teacher selections. So what we're presenting before you are the instructional materials that the teachers have vetted, they've looked at, and would like to utilize next year with their math curriculum.
That process that we have our local teachers going through to approve these, it's like the most votes wins kind of thing, like something.
Because everybody gets the opportunity, everybody reviews multiple curricula that the state has approved, and they each complete their own rubric, and then they each give their own vote. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we approve the new books for the coming year.
Second.
Gonna have a motion and a second that, cause you get a show of hands. Thank you.
Oh, I was
One
gonna
of-
abstain. I mean, it's just, I looked at the books and the elementary ones, I went to Google and it said, is iReady Math Common Core? And it does say iReady Math is Common Core standards, which Common Core, the academic achievement for students across the country began to drop following the widespread implementation of Common Core in 2013. So that's why I'm abstaining.
The teachers
It's-
are excited about our reading. Very.
And I think it's something different that they're doing this time.
Yes, ma'am, there's new math standards being approved right now that our teachers will use next year.
Right, it's just the problems, they go around the block, it's, you know, it's kind of like new math.
The conceptual pieces
Yeah,
of it.
in the elementary, it's, and you don't just multiply, you do all these.
Yeah.
So it's but that's why, that was
I don't
why I was.
understand.
Can I make a point of order?
Go ahead.
I completely understand the reasoning for abstaining, but in my personal opinion, the only way we can represent our constituents is to vote on each motion, okay? When we abstain, we're not representing the people we're not representing our constituents. The only way we can represent them is by doing what they elected us to do, is to come, weigh the stuff, and vote. So I appreciate it. It's not meant to degrade anything or anyone, but I would encourage us all to vote. It doesn't have to be yes, it doesn't have, it doesn't have to be no, but vote your conscience, because that's how we represent our constituents.
Mr. Bradshaw, would that be a point of order or just an opinion?
I take that, I will make that a point of personal
Okay,
privilege. Thank you. Thank you for that too, Mr. Thompson.
Could I get a motion to go into?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we go into executive session to cover the items of section 30-4-70A1, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, and release of an employee regulated by a public body. A, B, new hires, elementary, middle, and high school administrative salaries, and section 30-4-70A2, discussion of proposed sale, purchase of property, and receipt of legal advice.
Could I get a second? Did I get a second on that? Okay, we have a proper motion for a second that we go into executive session. We need to vote for executive session.
No.